the semifinals.
That kid was a man.
Good evening. Welcome to the Oregon City Council regular meeting. The date is January 29th, 2023. The time now is 7:01. We will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Evans, would you take a roll call of council members present, please?
Mr. Davish?
Here.
Mr. Drake?
Here.
Mr. Horniak? Mrs. Pavlov? Here. Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Wallensack?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Here. Council, Mr. Horniak had contacted me and he had to be out of town on business. Can I get a motion to excuse Mr. Horniak from tonight's meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing none, Mr. Horniak is excused from tonight's meeting. Also present at tonight's meeting is Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joel Major, Clerk of Council Tina Evans, Law Director Melissa Pura, Public Service Director Paul Roman, Chief of Police Brandon Began, Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, Assistant Fire Chief Mark Mullins, and Assistant Finance Director Nick Rome. Council, because we did not have a meeting last week, I need a motion to add items, or excuse me, never mind. We need minutes approved from the December 19th, 2022 meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move to approve the minutes from the December 19th, 2020 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the meeting minutes from December 19th, 2022, the regular council meeting have been approved. We also need a motion to, since we did not have a meeting last week, to add items 5 through 10, 2023 to this week's meeting agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, items 5, 2023 through 10, 2023 have been added to this week's regular meeting agenda. We will begin the first item, item 5, 2023, which is presented by myself and Councilman Dennis Wallensack. And I'm going to defer to Mr. Major on this for opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. President. So what you have before you right now, there's a legal sheet of paper on it. It's double-sided. What it has is about 80 or so communities from around the state that have the salaries for mayors and city councils of all the different communities. And you'll see there's a wide variety of pay scales per community. So there's a lot of inconsistency, but based on the data that we have in front of us, and by the way, this list is from the Ohio Municipal League salary survey, something that they put through every 2 years. So this was 2021. The next one is going to be coming out in March of 2023. Excuse me. So based on the information and the data, in my opinion, the salaries being proposed for the Oregon elected officials is adequate and reasonable, and it's in line with what all the other communities have. So I want to keep my comments brief, and that's all I have unless anybody has questions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I just want to add that the last time this was visited by City Council was 6 years ago. I believe it was 6 years ago. And we were actually required to look at this now, or the current salaries for council members and the mayor would have fallen back to even before 6 years ago automatically, because the sunset clause, the sunset provision within the ordinance. Also, this ordinance does state that we have to revisit this every 3 years. That's all I. Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. Zale.
Mr. Wallen's.
Thank you, President Zale. Just to go along with what you did in 2017, council did take action on council pay and mayor pay. We purposely put a sunset provision in there to force action, and that was because it had been over 10 years since council looked at their salaries, and there were some council members that at the time were pushing for significant pay raises, and we chose to kind of go in the middle of what people thought and put a provision in that forced us to take an action within 6 years so that we would never get to the point where we waited 10 years to look at that action. So that's how we came to being here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wallen's. Did we state that the current composition of council and the mayor right now cannot get this raise unless they are reelected?
That's correct. This would be only for the newly elected members of council and for the this year's election. And then the people that would be remaining on council after the election would not receive this pay until they go through an election, because you are not allowed to vote yourself a pay raise while you're on council or as a mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Wallen's. Council, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Sale?
Mr. Reeves?
Thank you. The only question I have is it by Ohio revised code that we have to, in 3 years, talk about this, or is it just what we've put in there?
No, it's what we put in there. To kind of force us to look at that every 3 years.
I understand.
And
I understand that. I understand that concept, but it's,
well, with this,
I don't think, like what we talked about in our budget hearings and things like that, we don't ever want to sort of go backwards.
yeah, this ordinance did take that out. If we don't do it in three more years, it doesn't fall back. Like the original one did. Am I correct?
Mr.
It
Zale,
stays put
that is,
unless we change it,
that is correct.
unless council changes it.
Okay.
Currently, what you have in place from the ordinance in 2017, if council does not take action before February 1st or by February 1st, the salaries actually revert back to 2005
Okay.
because of that sunset provision that was passed in 2017. The way that the current ordinance is drafted, it's just to be reviewed. So should council elect to not change, it will still say the same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Council, any other questions or comments regarding?
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake.
Melissa, the last sentence you just said, could you explain that a little better?
Sure. What that means is if council decides to pass the resolution or the ordinance that is currently in front of you, the increase will remain the same, meaning that it would stay at the mayor at 45, president of council 16,000, members of council 15. That's what 3 years from now, if council decides it shouldn't change, those salaries would remain. Whereas if council decides today not to pass this ordinance, it reverts back to the salaries that were listed in 2005, meaning the mayor would go back down to 23,000, president of council would be 10,000, and members of city council would be 9,000. Does that make sense?
And Mr. President,
Mr. Wallen's.
thank you, Mr. President. I'll speak loud enough. And I believe it has to be by February 1st in order for the next elected council members to receive the pay raise, right? It's not like we could wait till the end of March and do this whole scenario over again. By Ohio ordinance or Ohio revised code, it has to be done by February 1st so that the next elected officials get the pay raise. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Wallensack. This is council's last opportunity before that February 1st date to make that change. The Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio ethics laws says that no raise can be imposed on any council member's current term. So you are correct. This is council's last chance to make this change for the next election.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pora. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, any questions or comments? Hearing none. I will assign item 5, 2023 as ordinance 5, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Fixing the salaries of the mayor, president of council, and members of council for the terms commencing January 1, 2024, and including a triennial review provision and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
move for passage of ordinance 5 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak. Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Ms. Evans, you take a roll call vote of council, please.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Thank you, council. Ordinance 5, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Forgot Dennis.
Did you miss?
I missed Dennis.
Yes.
I thought I came up awful.
I did too.
The next item for consideration is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joel Major, and Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien. I'll go to Chief O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is an annual ordinance. It's for Atlantic Emergency Solutions. They actually specialize in the repair and services of our fire apparatus. We do use a local vendor, which you'll see in the next ordinance, but this is for work above and beyond what our local vendors can take care of.
Is this generally with the aerial ladder trucks? or-
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenczak?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Clayton, or Chief Clayton, how often do we need service on the ladder trucks? I know they're aging. Is this something that we foresee over the next couple of years, going to significant work on them?
So that's a catch-22 question, because I don't know as far as like, it comes and goes in waves. The more that the apparatus is used, the more that it's gonna need to be repaired. But it's right now, for the foreseeable future, we don't have any major repairs in. Station 2's tower ladder does have some issues, if you will, but it's not that it's something that's out of service or has to go there immediately. So on the forefront, nothing immediate, but just in case.
Okay, and we're not in an out of service situation where our ladder would be taken out of service at this time.
Correct.
Thank you.
Both ladders are in service. All of our engines are in service. Atlantic will then be for the times that outside of our local vendor to be able to do the repairs, and we would take it down there, or they come up and can do mobile repair.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Thank you, Chief. Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will assign item 6, 2023 as ordinance 6, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to issue purchase orders to Atlantic Emergency Solutions, Findlay Regional Service Center, 1120 Lima Avenue, Findlay, Ohio, to provide maintenance and repair services for fire engines and tower ladders and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paulo.
I move for passage of ordinance 6 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Paulo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mrs. Polliff?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenczak?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Thank you, council. Ordinance 6, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. Next item for consideration, which is also presented by Mayor Michael Safarian, City Administrator Joel Major, and Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, is item 7. And I will defer to Chief O'Brien on this one too.
Thank you, Mr. President. This, again, is another annual ordinance, but we do put it out for bid, if you will. American Enterprises was the lowest best that was awarded that bid this year, and they do all the work on our bigger trucks according to the NFPA 1911 standard, which is standard maintenance and repairs. And any work that they cannot do is when it goes to Atlantic.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Is there anybody close to us that could do the same kind of repairs that they do? I know we've used them for years and they've been reliable, but is there
As-
anybody close that we wouldn't have to travel far to if someone else did bid this?
Compared to Atlantic or American?
American.
They're like here.
I know.
They're just right here.
Mr. President, W.W. Williams would probably be our closest. They bid, but however, they were out of the scope, so.
How far away are they?
I-280, just on the other side of
Oh,
T5.
okay. Thank you, Chief. Council, any other questions or comments regarding item 7? Hearing none, I will assign item 7, 2023 as ordinance 7, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to issue purchase orders to American Enterprises Incorporated, 5508 Navarre Avenue, Oregon, Ohio, to provide maintenance and repair services for fire department vehicles and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 7 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak or Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Ms. Evans, you take a roll call vote to council, please.
Mrs. Pauloff?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 7, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item, item 8, is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Police Chief Brandon Began, and I will defer to Chief Began on this particular item.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is to cover the changeover cost for the 4 vehicles that we ordered back in September of last year. It's a 2023 Ford Explorer Interceptor models. We still don't have a production date on those. We don't know exactly when we're going to get those, but this is to issue a purchase order so DR Evil can order the supplies, which are take quite some time to get in, so that way we can be prepared when those vehicles do arrive.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
thank you. Chief, how are our other vehicles? I mean, I know we're waiting on these other, the 4 that we have ordered, but how are our other vehicles holding up while we're waiting for this? I mean, I know everybody's been waiting for things. I've talked to a couple of dealers or car salesmen that said that they've ordered trucks that are out there 18 months that they haven't gotten yet. I mean, how are our vehicles holding up so far that we have, and how many spares do we have?
So we're doing okay with our vehicles. We rotate them through, so they start out on the road where they're being run constantly. Then when we get newer vehicles in, they switch out and they'll be used for school resource officer vehicles that aren't in use as much as the road patrol vehicles. So we're doing okay with that. We just got our 2022 vehicles at the end of last year. We just got them outfitted and they hit the road in the last couple days. So we have 3 brand new ones for road patrol. They do look a little bit different. We took the white vinyl off the panels. So if you see the 3 cars driving around that are all black with the Oregon Police blue emblems on there, those are the newest ones that we have. So we're getting by. We still, have a lot of maintenance costs, but that's how it always is in the police department because we run them 24 hours a day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Thank you, Chief. Council, any other questions or comments regarding this item? Hearing none, I will assign item 8, 2023 as ordinance 8, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to issue a purchase order to DR Evil Police and Fire Equipment, 3203 Woodville Road, Northwood, Ohio, for the 2023 police vehicle equipment purchase and changeovers for the Oregon Police Division.
Council.
Mr. President,
Ms. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 08 of 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Davish. Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Evans, would you take a roll call vote of council on item 8?
Mrs. Pauloff?
Yes.
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 8, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item for consideration is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Law Director, Melissa Pepora, and I will defer to Ms. Pepora.
I'll go first and then she'll.
Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and council, you know, the extension of Windscape. The Windscape Road, that was EDA grant project, that was 80% deal. And this project was approximately $3 million, and the grant paid 2.6 million of that. And it is extended from Windscape to Parkway Drive, and we call that extension Parkway Drive also. So Melissa can explain some other details with it, but that will extend part of our commercial industrial area.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Pepora.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance finalizes the process. As the mayor had stated, the city obtained an EDA grant, which allowed the infrastructure improvements for the construction of the roadway and utilities to connect Parkway Drive and Windscape Drive. We acquired some parcels pursuant to the ordinances that are listed in your current ordinance in front of you. The deeds of conveyance have all been duly recorded, and this is the last step that we are asking council to dedicate and accept this Parkway Road as a public road and public right-of-way. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Pepora. You know, I kind of brought up a funny question about this, and Mr. Roman and I had a conversation about this, but of course, the road I live on is Parkway, two separate words. And then this word is Parkway, one word. So I always have to make sure that if I call somebody to come to my house or have something fixed or something delivered, I have to always make sure that my road or my name or my street is separated, because they always end up over here with their GPS and call me wondering where I live.
I guess we could change it and call it all Windscape Drive. And
There is an existing parkway prior to this.
Yeah.
Prior where they had.
yeah, that little stub street at Parkway.
Yeah.
But I mean, we could have,
I mean, I
could if it-
realize
if
it.
it's a problem.
I realize this is something,
And
and I'm not the only one that's noticed. My neighbors have noticed the same thing.
yeah.
And I know it's probably very difficult, if not impossible, to do this because of the cost to the businesses.
That's what-
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
say
you're
it's
talking-
impossible, but it would definitely be a cost. You definitely deal with the post office. And
Right.
yes, somebody would have to change their addresses to a new name. You'd go through the same process. You'd rename the road.
Yeah, yeah, but I'll live, but I just thought it was funny.
You
It was
probably
my
do-
it was my
you
opportunity to
probably
bring
do.
this up.
Yeah, as much as the mayor mentioned it, and you could make it Windscape all the way to Loudon, you know, but then Fresenius and any of the other industries would have to change their address.
Thank you. Council, any other questions or comments regarding this item? Hearing none, I will assign item 9, 2023 as ordinance 9, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it to the record.
Dedication and acceptance of parcel 44-10206 to public use as Parkway Road as a public street and roadway right-of-way in the city of Oregon and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paulo.
I move for passage of ordinance 9 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Paulo. Second by Mr. Walenzak. Thank you, Mr. Walenzak. Ms. Evans, would you take a roll call vote from council on ordinance 9?
Mrs. Pavlov,
Yes.
Mr. Walenzeg,
Yes.
Mr. Dabish,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Zale,
Yes. Thank you, council. Ordinance 9, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The final item for this evening is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Public Service Director Paul Roman. Item 10, and I will defer to Mr. Roman on this particular item.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is needed to proceed with the design of the Otter Creek Stream Improvements Project. This was, as noted in the city budget meetings, the city did receive a $1.39 million grant from the US EPA to improve Otter Creek from North Whittlesey to Yarrow Street. We do have a map that's included in Exhibit A that shows the proposed project area. The design is very similar to another project out back on Wolf Creek. That was another grant for 1.3 million. And very similar to that same stream improvements. There is some widening involved and certainly the plantings and very much creating wetlands. It does improve habitat restoration and definitely is an improvement for the water. We did advertise for qualifications for this. We only received one, but from Anakin Smith, they were the designer for, they are the designer for Wolf Creek. They're also the designer for the urban runoff project on Otter Creek at the end of Eastmoreland Boulevard, which is a beautiful project, actually won an award. I think beyond that, we think Anakin Smith would do a great job. We think their costs are fair and their scope of work is included in Exhibit A, and be happy to answer any questions. That their work is 100% funded through this grant, just so you know. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Council, any questions or comments regarding item 10? Hearing none, I will assign item 10, 2023 as ordinance 10, 2023, and ask Ms. Evans to read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into an agreement with the Manikin Smith Group Incorporated, 1800 Indian Woods Circle, Maumee, Ohio, to provide professional engineering and survey services for the Otter Creek stream improvements in Maumee AOC in an amount not to exceed $140,000 and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Davish.
I move for passage of ordinance 10 of 2023 as emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Davish.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak. Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Ms. Evans, would you take a roll call vote of council on ordinance 10?
Mr. Davish?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenczak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Pavlov?
yes,
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 10, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. This will complete our agenda items for this evening's meeting, and we'll now move to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President and council. You have before you a letter for an appointment I would choose to make tonight, and that would be from the finance department with the retirement of Sue Hopkins. They opened up this position, and after interviews were made, the choice as recommended to me would be for the appointment of Miss Lisa Baker, 204 Warner Street, Walbridge, Ohio, to the position of payroll supervisor to be placed at the pay range 25, step 1, which is hourly rate of $34.77.52, which is, excuse me, an annual salary of $72,332.52. The startup date is February 7th, 2023, and I would ask for council's concurrence as I struggle through this for once again, the appointment of Ms. Lisa Baker to the position of payroll supervisor effective February 7th, 2023.
Council.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenczak?
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to concur with the mayor with the appointment of Ms. Lisa Baker of Walbridge, Ohio, to the position of payroll supervisor in the finance department.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak.
second,
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, are there any objections? Mr. Mayor, council does concur with the appointment of Ms. Lisa Baker.
Lisa is here in the front second row, and we usually require them to, people like after they're appointed, to come up and speak for 15, 20 minutes.
You're not supposed to know.
That was in the fine print.
Well,
Congratulations.
and we welcome. And other than that, I have just to let you guys know that with the improvements for the dog park in front of the Y, we did move the recycle station to the extension of Munding Road, which is currently kind of a dead-end road where Munding crosses Isaac Streets Drive. So it is notified on our website, and we sent, and the county will notify too. But that will be the new location. That won't be, it is the new location. They're currently there. And with
Thank you,
that, I
Mr.
would conclude my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. Since Mr. Councilman Horniak's not here, I believe that next week is the fifth Monday, so there is no council meeting
That's correct. I was
scheduled.
going to announce that.
February 6th would be the next one, and we had talked, so I know everybody likes asking questions to everyone about the town center. So there are a couple of updates. The new site layout came in today, the one that we've been kind of tweaking and revising. We are meeting with some of the prospective tenants, and Fairmount Properties, the developer for the project, is scheduled to be here on February 6th for a committee meeting at 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, I think, would be adequate. And I don't want to speak for Councilman Horniak, but when we talked about it, that seemed like the right place. But speaking of place, we had talked about having it in here instead, since there are a lot of questions about the town center. Just, I get them all the time throughout town, and, if I go to places, visit people, everybody wants to know what's going on. So might be good to have it in this room so that we can have some of the materials up on the large screen, have more seating for more people if they want to join and learn about what's going on at the town center.
Very good. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pepora?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pepora. Mr. Roman?
Yeah, I just had one item, and I mentioned the Wolf Creek stream improvements out back to the south of the complex. We are planning an open house meeting a week from this Wednesday. So on February 1st, 6 o'clock in this room, we will have a public open house meeting for that project. So it'll be a preliminary design, and I know we've met with some members of council as well as the rec department to go through, make sure we aren't stepping on the rec's toes for what we're doing, but it'll be a meeting for everybody. You're welcome to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Mr. Reeves?
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing from my standing committee, but excuse me, I would like to, and Mr. Roman, I apologize, I should have asked you earlier, but the Navarre-Coy intersection there, when you're heading southbound on Coy, going across Navarre, right now they have the 2 lanes, that designated turn lane. People are both set of vehicles are going across Navarre.
Right.
Is that supposed to be the right turn? Is that going to be a right turn only lane?
Well, it goes both ways, because on the south side of Navarre, it is 2 lanes heading south. So, towards Dustin,
Yes.
So, but I know, I didn't know what your question would be. I know others had asked, well, what about making a right turn on Red? And until we get our official signage for the U-turns, it's difficult. But we're getting special temporary signs made up so that it'll allow for that. You just kind of
Right.
yield to the U-turns on Navarre. But no, it is correct the way it's straight.
But both of those lanes will be
Yep.
able to go?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Drake?
Yeah, I got a question for Mr. Roman, kind of to get back to what Terry brought up. I know I talked to you, Paul, right after it opened, the lanes. I know they have a sign. I don't know if they have it
It's a different.
wired up to a traffic cone or something.
Yeah, it's temporary.
Really
and-
hard
Correct. And
to
we,
see.
and Mr. Drake, not to cut you off, but that was what I was mentioning, that we were getting specially made signs better than that and properly installed, but they are temporary as well until we get the true traffic lights and everything else in March.
Okay, because I know some of the lanes on Navarre, I believe even heading north on Coy, are painted to turn or straight.
Right.
And I'm like Terry, I've been confused too,
Right,
where I'd
right.
go into Rite Aid
Right.
and the car next to me, was looking at me like, what the heck are they doing? So,
It is 2 lanes on the south side, heading south towards Dustin. So that's why you have the 2 lanes going through,
right.
just so you know.
All right.
Um,
Thanks, Paul.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Mr. Walenzak?
I have no report this evening, Mr.
Thank you,
President.
Mr. Walenzak. Mr. Davish?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Davish. Ms. Pauloff?
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. I have no report from my standing committee. However, next Monday is the 5th Monday of the month, so there would be no council meeting as I do anticipate committee of the whole meeting on February the 6th. Yeah, February the 6th. And we may also have a need to call a special council meeting if we do manage to hire a candidate to fulfill clerk of council by that time. And just to let council know, at the end of this week, we will be doing interviews on candidates for clerk of council. And that's all I have. Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we have two people signed in to speak before council today. Ms. Ruth Price. Ruth, if you'd come to the podium, please state your name and your address, please.
Ruth Price, 5255 Seaman. I had mentioned the last two council meetings that I wanted information on the property that Oregon owns, and it didn't come through, so I went downtown and acquired it, but I was only able to acquire 12 pages. The rest of it at that time was not available. So at that time, it shows that Oregon owns 23 parcels. Some of those are part of this parcel. Some of them are just open land. I'm still working on it, but I just wanted to let you know I got that information. My other question is about the Kmart property. What is AMJB LLC?
What is it?
Does Oregon own that property? Or
No,
is
it
it
says
under a
lease.
corporation?
Yeah.
It's a lease. Wow.
Go ahead.
It's a lease
You wanna
with
answer?
Purchase to,
intent to buy.
lease to purchase. I know, and it's a lease to purchase. I know that.
I'm sorry?
It's a lease with intent to buy. And
Okay,
at any time, we could purchase it
Yeah.
outright any day
was-
at an amortization rate.
it was rather confusing.
All right, that's a lot of legal terms in there, I'm sure, but that's what it is.
Mhm.
The city leases it and the lease payment goes towards the purchase price. And if we buy it early, we get it for a little less than if we buy it all to full term. So it's just a lease purchase agreement.
Because this paper states that it's a year behind on taxes. They owe $50,000 on taxes that have not been paid.
On that property?
Yes,
I
There
know-
was an issue that we dealt with that where they had billed us for it and we had made that payment. But yeah, we just sent over the $25,000 payment. I think it was actually this week that we're due February 1st. So I'm not sure if that's part of the amount that was owed. But yeah,
We pay
just
that
paid-
tax.
We just paid a
I'm sorry?
$25,000.
The city of Oregon paid the tax
Yeah.
on the lease. So
we-
we do pay the tax.
we're paying the taxes on the lease.
That's part
Is
of
that
on
what
the
you
tax.
said?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So,
It's a standard triple net style lease agreement that is very common.
okay. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah. And as Mr. Roman stated, there was some kind of confusion on there, and he said just currently did get paid.
Okay. And on the property of where the Freeway Restaurant was, that's also listed as like an LLC corporation. Are we leasing
No, we
that?
have we
No.
have no ties to that whatsoever.
No.
Okay. Who owns that property now?
I do know, I don't know what LLC they're in, but there's three Kesey brothers that own that.
So the
joint-
brothers still,
We still own it.
the Free brothers still own it.
That is correct.
No.
Huh?
The Kesey brothers own that.
Yeah, yeah, the Keseys, not the freeways.
Right.
The
Okay.
freeways,
They
before it
sold-
was owned by the
Correct.
freeways and Jerry
Okay.
Wilson, that was sold, and now it is owned by the Keezy
K
brothers.
I E Z I. Keezy?
K-E-I-Z-I, I believe is right.
Kiezi.
I believe that's correct.
Okay, yeah, that's what it shows, and
Yeah.
it shows that, I was wondering about that because that shows that it's,
Delinquent on cash. 200 and some thousand dollars.
$280,000.
They just paid it.
Okay,
Yeah, they
As of-
were,
it's not on record yet, it's being paid.
we checked, it has been
Okay.
paid.
What, so back to Kmart. If we're not gonna develop that
We are.
We are.
soon,
That's what
Well, we will.
we just announced.
I mean,
We're
what I'm
planning.
saying is, if
Well,
it's,
Ruth,
if it's not
we-
gonna be developed soon, is it going to be cleaned up and maintained, just like the freeway property that is so nasty looking?
we did some cleanup work on it at the end of the year before winter hit. We will continue. We hope we get some construction started in the springtime. We always hope that. Remember, we have a very difficult time in this city creating retail development. It's a hard sell for us. It's a very hard sell. And you can't compare it to Perrysburg or somewhere else like people always do. We were told it was nearly impossible to develop it. We purchased that because we had the opportunity, as Kmart came for sale or went out of business, to have a possibility of a town center. If we didn't, we lose that opportunity for life because there is no other place that has an access and property available. So we purchased this knowing it was difficult, but if we didn't do it then, it would never happen. So we'll be patient. We had opportunities that we could have sold the front parts, but it's not what we thought. We heard from the citizens of the city, the type of development they want. So we would rather be patient and take time to develop something that we can be proud of versus just additional buildings on Navarre Avenue. We want more than that. And we're willing to wait and be patient to get some quality development there. And it is tough here. We do not have the numbers that a lot of retail developments would like to have in population within a 3 to 5 mile radius. The traffic down Route 2 is rated and the understand is going to Sandusky and Cleveland and flow through traffic. Some of it's willing to stop, some is not. So it is difficult for us to get retail development, and we knew that going in. We knew it wouldn't be an easy sell, mixed with COVID times and things changing. We still feel very confident that we will develop it.
I hope
We'll
so.
do better. You know, well, we will. I can't tell you when that will be,
Yeah.
but we will do our best to do it as soon as possible, as long as we can get what we believe the people in this town want.
I have another question.
And just, I want to go back to one other thing.
Pardon?
I want to go back to one other thing
Oh.
that you brought up about us giving you the records. You know why we couldn't give you it? We didn't have a record. We had no record of when you did a records request. There is no record of the property here. So you know what we did? We went and created one.
This is what I got downtown from.
Well,
the
you could,
tax
I'm not
assessor.
saying that there isn't paperwork that shows that we own property, but you did a records request. We are required to grant records. There was no record on it. There's no record of properties that the city of Oregon, well, there is now, because we just created one. We created it for you.
Okay.
And so now it is available, and it was available Friday, I believe. So it was all right. So we spent a lot of time doing that all for
I'm
you,
glad to
and
hear
then
that.
created a record
Okay.
just
I
for
look
you.
forward to getting it from you.
All right. You
The other
haven't done,
question-
you must, or Or who has it?
Melissa has one.
Oh, yeah, Melissa has one.
The other question I have is, the building that is, I'm assuming, under construction at the corner of Corduroy and Lollendorf, that big,
Yes, yes.
what is that?
That is a spec building that
Neuter.
Neuter has built. And they are building that on speculation that they can find some business to take that over. And I believe they have told us they feel real good that they will fill that building when they complete it.
Okay.
So,
So we're not,
part and parcel of that, no.
we're not part of that piece of property.
We are part of the piece of property, but not part of the building. We are selling that parcel to them that building is on. The city does own the parcel that building is being placed on, and they will be purchasing that from the city.
Now, does the city own the whole farm that Carl Ackerman had there? Because I think that was
20
part of
acres.
where that original property.
Yeah. Mr. President, I don't know who had owned
Does
it
the
prior.
city-
I know it was 20 acres at
Yeah.
Corduroy and Lollendorf.
Does the city own Carl Ackerman's house because it's vacant and
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't.
no?
I don't think we do.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
okay. I had one other question.
That's the one
Could
Butch
be.
Ackerman was living in.
It could be.
Pardon me?
That's the one Butch Ackerman was living in before he passed away.
I don't know,
I think it
but I know it was
had a
originally.
barn on it.
That farm, that property, the brick house and all that belonged to Carl Ackerman.
And Carl's son is Butch.
Okay.
And he was, I
Carl
believe,
died.
what's that?
Carl died.
So did Butch.
Yeah.
So
So I didn't know if, because that was so close, if that was part of that.
No.
So it's separate. So at this point, you don't know what's going in that building.
no one does.
Okay.
The owners of that building do not even know they're
Okay.
trying to fill that building.
I'm asking so many questions about it because people know that I have been over here asking about things.
Mhm.
And I've had several people ask me about that particular piece of property, and I told them I would ask them about it. Okay?
Just like, I think you could equate that to builders that build residential houses. Sometimes they contract with someone that wants the house built. Other times they built one on speculation. They build it and they believe once they get it, it will appeal to someone and they'll buy it. They built that building, and a lot of businesses want to move into a building. They don't want to go through all that process. So they said, we build the building and then we can attract a purchaser very easy. They think they can.
Who owns the property that Mark Riggs is in the middle of developing at the corner of Star Extension and Wynn? Does Mark own those,
Mark is
own the property
at Star Extension and Wynn? No.
where they're
Moshes
building
and
those
Slockers.
small
Huh?
houses?
That's Moshes and Slockers.
Yeah, Moses Doctor, right over here.
Yes,
Yeah,
Eden Park, Eden
Mark
Park.
Rick has nothing to do with that.
I thought he was building those.
No,
Oh,
no.
So does the developer own that whole piece of property?
Yes, he does.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, just
Yeah.
one other thing.
Yeah, he's
I'm
the
so glad-
same one who owns.
I'm
Eden-
sorry?
He's the same developer owner that owns Eden Park. The development
To
right
south
to
of
the north of that.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know if that was part of that, because originally, I've known Mark his whole life, that he was gonna be the developer of that, so I
That
had
was
not-
never the case. That
I
was
never
never,
heard
that
it
was never the
differently.
case. Mark Riggin never had anything to do with it, and he was never gonna build there.
Okay. Well, that came from his parents, so.
Yeah. I know Mark real well. He lives
Yeah.
a few doors down.
One other statement.
Yeah.
If I may make it. You
You got
still
that?
haven't worked on the microphones.
What's that?
You still have not addressed the situation with the microphones.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Well, there's some here that you cannot hear.
All
And
right.
then for a while there, Dennis's
Hopefully I
wasn't
spoke loud
working.
enough for you.
Hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Price. Thank you, Ms. Price.
I'll
Ms.
just-
Price.
Mr. Salander,
Thank you.
You're welcome. They even
come to the
created a
podium,
map
state
for
your
you.
name and address, please.
They even created a map for you.
Hi, good evening. Steve Solander, 2435 East Vale Avenue, Oregon. Just a quick question or statement, whatever you want to call it. But I know a while back when your predecessor was here, it was discussed about the non-emergency phone number for 911 or for non-emergency, I guess. But there still has been some confusion, as it seems, with some people on what to call and who to call and so forth. And when they get confused like that, then they're turning to 911, which of course bogs that down then. So I know it was talked about before though, about putting something in the water bills.
We did do that.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
see it in there.
Yeah, it's
No.
been a couple months.
Yeah,
Oh,
we did
I
it
don't
quite a
wanna-
while. I thought we did,
And
yeah.
then we did a, not to cut you off, but we
Yeah,
did
it's okay.
a phone tree. We put it on the Facebook. And I think a lot of people knowing that you got to listen to the options.
Yeah.
Maybe get fed up and they just hit one and then it goes off to the cog, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But
Oh, okay. Yeah, I completely.
Yeah, we had it
missed
on
that.
there for definitely probably a good 6 months or so.
Really?
Yeah.
What, the page that was in the water bills, was that?
It was on the
a different color or
front
anything?
page. I
Of the
know
water bill?
that, yeah. And then, yeah,
Okay.
there was a big thing. And then I think the same information was put out on Facebook
Huh.
in a post. So,
Completely overlooked it in my water.
yeah.
Okay, all right. I apologize.
Yeah, Mr. Drake had asked for that as well.
Right.
That's why we
Yep.
did it. Yeah,
Okay, okay. I completely missed my water bill.
it's okay.
All right, never mind.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salander. With that, we have no one else to speak. I would seek a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Counselor, are there any objections? Meeting is adjourned. Turn your mic off.
Yeah, I need to do that. I